Welcome to Grawlix Nights, the Grawlix Podcast live show. I'm Randy.
I'm Melanie.
And I'm Jesse.
Tonight, there's so many Lokis. That's all I got to say.
Yeah.
I don't
Every
have any,
Loki.
all of the Lokis. Even Lokis that Lokis are confused about.
Mm-hmm.
Easter eggs. I'm sure there were a ton. So yeah, we'll be discussing Loki episode 5, I believe it was.
Mm-hmm.
This evening, and I haven't. Yeah, there were a bunch of Easter eggs. I'm curious as to talked about. I'm excited to talk about it because I'm curious if Jesse caught some that I didn't catch, because there's lots of Marvel stuff that I'm not keen on. I'm not aware of.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I caught none of them except for the super obvious one
Okay.
that everyone's like, ah! It was like, oh yeah.
Okay. But first, how are you guys doing?
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
Good. Yeah. It's been a weird week.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like oddly getting a lot done and not enough done at the same time. But
Right.
yesterday we got our car situation kind of figured out, which has been hanging over our heads since like May. So
Oh yeah.
that feels good to have that done.
Nice. Good. Yeah, it's not a great time to have to try to find a car.
No, it isn't. And we basically had to settle a little bit, which is
Right.
fine.
Yeah.
It's the 20s. You got to settle.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a prohibition on cars, apparently.
The 20s all about compromises.
Yeah.
Um, hey, Melanie, how about you? How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Savannah says I should have come and see her, and if I had time, I would have. I do want to see you when I get a chance.
Savannah's got legs in a car.
That's fair. Hey, are we not live on Twitch, or is my computer just that bad?
I'm not sure. Let me see. We should be live on Twitch. We should be live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch.
Ooh.
We appear to be live on Twitch.
Oh.
Oh, okay.
Your computer is just that bad. Hey, can I pop out?
Oh, that is a frustration.
Yeah. Savannah, been watching anything? Been watching anything good? Hi, by the way. Yes.
I was gonna say, how are you doing, Randy?
Oh, I'm fine. We had 4th of July this last weekend here in the States, where we celebrate things the only way we know how, by explosives.
Yeah. And usually getting drunk and then letting off explosives.
That's the only way to handle explosive materials.
Yeah.
Drunk and stuffed full of hot dogs.
Hot dogs.
I actually had no hot dogs, but I bet a lot of people listening in the States did.
Yeah.
There were hot dogs available.
Yes.
I did not have them, but they were there.
Oh, there were hot dogs available too. And I just didn't eat one as well. Where we were at. Interesting. See?
Yep. That makes sense.
We're the nation of hot dogs.
Well, hot diggity dog.
I feel like this episode is starting off. Ooh, whiz bang.
We've got a long fuse.
Yes. Oh, man. Hey, Paul, what's going on? Savannah says she hasn't been watching anything. She's been laying in her pool. Well, yeah, outside of that, not too much going on for me. Work's a little slow, so I've been play a lot of video games and watching Doctor Who. Actually, I playing a lot of video. I got 2 monitors.
Oh.
You have to listen.
Yeah,
If
what
you
you
don't have-
watching? What you watching?
If you don't have multiple monitors on your, if you got a desktop, you don't have 2 monitors. You don't have a desktop. You're not doing it right. So, I'll play my games, and then New Who. I've been watching through New Who. I jumped around a little bit for the 9th Doctor, and then I hit the 10th Doctor and I've been watching through episode by episode through there. And, like I said, I've been playing games at the same time. But since I've already seen it, I just kind of... okay, so I'm currently I'm through the RTD era. I'm into the Moth.
Oh my.
And I will say, watching through them, the Russell T. Davies era was amazing. It was so good. It was so good. And the Ninth Doctor is great, but I feel like that first season suffers a little bit, probably by budget.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Just the look of it.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't age well comparatively.
Right, right. Yeah, exactly. And
just the look of it, really.
Yeah, I feel like, well, that was 2005 or something. They switched over to nicer HD digital video, along with the switch to Tenet, to when Tenet came on. And yeah, visually those hold up better. But I think that's part of also just having more of a budget. I think, they weren't sure, BBC wasn't sure about it. I'm sure they had kind of a small budget going into that first season. And then as it became more popular, the budget probably increased.
Yeah. And also, I love me some Ninth Doctor, but Tennant oozes charisma, so it's not surprising that was better. Also,
right? No, he does. He does. And so one thing I kind of pinpointed what I like about, despite the fact that Moffat wrote some of the best episodes of the RTD era, one thing I was able to kind of pinpoint was that I feel like during Russell T. Davies' period, the characters were written better, or there was more focus on the characters. There was also, of course, the episode by episode plot with the occasional overhanging, over the season long plots that we get stringed through. But I feel like there was more focus on the characters, how the characters interacted, and this is maybe where I thought Chibnall would have done really good, but kind of has really faltered. Not only is there a lot of focus on the characters and how they interact with each other, but the plot of each episode, even if it doesn't have anything to do with the larger season arc as a whole, each plot, every event affects the characters and has an impact on the characters, or has some significance to each character in a way. Rewatching through Donna, Donna has the worst time. I feel like she's kind of gotten the rawest deal of the new Who companions, because
she doesn't even get to remember.
She doesn't get to remember, and every episode she's traumatized. So outside of because she shows up for a Christmas episode and then is not a proper companion. Then she's like, nope, this was crazy. And then she comes back later as a proper companion. So outside of that first one, well, even that one, she witnesses the Doctor kind of start to go mad killing these spider babies.
Right.
But then the first proper episode is Pompeii, where she hands on the Doctor's hands, pushes the plunger down, killing 20,000 people. She killed 20,000 people on her first adventure. And I'm like, oh my God. And then after that, it just doesn't really get that much better. The Doctor allows her to psychically hear in on the Ood's horribly depressing slave song. And she's like, take it away. Just bawling. It is oh my God. Every adventure with her, it's just her being tormented in some way.
Maybe it's more just her reaction is extreme, because they do, all of the companions have a hard time, I think.
No, it's true, but and
they were also and then they totally undo this, but they are kind of regrounding the series after all of the crazy stuff that Martha just encountered, and the Sims Master and the with the Dobby Doctor and all of that. So they're we've got to bring it back to earth a little bit. And so you get, what better way than a temp from Chiswick?
And I was never super fond of Donna as compared to a lot of the other companions, because she is such like kind of basic,
Yeah.
as they would say.
But I love
But
her
that's
for
kind of
that.
her point.
Like,
She's so
yeah.
like real. She's like a real person. She's not
she's
like
a classic companion too.
yeah.
Like, brought it back to, I mean, granted, they undo that at the end, because they have
Right.
score creep, but she feels like she could take the pee out of the Doctor a little bit in a way that the other companions couldn't, because there was like a romance angle with both of the other ones. Honestly, I mean,
Oh yeah, Martha.
so-
Martha's a little milk toast. She's kind of bland, but but she's still like a strong companion. But part of the issue is like her whole thing is like she's just kind of pining for the Doctor, and the Doctor's just
Right.
not even interested.
she's the rebound companion.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And with Donna, they made a point that like there's nothing romantic here.
Yeah. Well,
Like,
you're not mating with me.
Exactly. They make that like explicit real quick. And another thing though, like I think that might, in terms of like how because there's always the overarching plot arc of each season. It might, like the whole turn left thing that they kind of set up through her run, or her like I guess her run as a companion. That might be the strongest, most cohesive season of the show.
Right.
Hey, what's going on, the Hood?
Heyo.
We, as often happens, we got on a side tangent about Doctor Who.
So the Hood is the best at drinking water on the moon.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Okay.
Is it like the little globules that like float around? You gotta like them up.
I mean, you have to be proficient if you're finding water on the moon, first of all,
Yeah.
and second of all, drinking it on the moon. So
Mm.
So the other thing is, okay, so I appreciated Donna's whole thing more than I did the first time through. Now I'm into Moff. He's definitely got the fairy tale thing going on. I don't know. The RTD era, there's a long run of episodes that kind of tear you up a little bit every episode.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, I'm not crying. The Doctor's gonna cry.
you're right.
And Moff doesn't hit that. Maybe that's not his goal. But and they put Amy and Rory through the ringer like hardcore. Melanie asked me the other day, like, at what point was I at? And I was like, oh, Amy and Rory, your favorite, because she loves Rory,
Yes, he's the best.
but
And Amy doesn't deserve him because she is a piece of poo. You know what? That's what Moffat is good at. That's his. I think his goal is to just make everyone angry because he succeeds at that every time.
Yeah, she hates.
I
Amy.
hate Amy.
But she asked me at what point I was at, and I was like, well, Rory's there, but at the moment he's dead. Technically, he's not dead. He never existed. He'll be back.
Oh, yeah.
But so yeah, like they die a couple times, and Moff definitely does the like. Companions are kind of as immortal, if not more immortal, than the Doctor in a way.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. What was that?
All except for Adric.
Well,
Right.
there's Adric's the exception to all the rules.
Well, classic companions like good luck.
Yeah, no,
Right.
they often did not meet well ends. They either died or, I mean, some of them just left, or they just got married off to somebody who they obviously probably didn't want to be married to.
Or the Doctor's like, I gotta go to Gallifrey. You're staying here, Sarah Jane.
See ya, Sarah
For
Jane.
no reason.
You're
That's
not in
it.
the right country.
Bye.
Oh well.
Mhm.
Sarah Jane interacted with 9 doctors,
Wow.
in canon.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't realize that. That's kind of incredible.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I've been watching some Doctor Who.
Mhm.
It's what happens if he gets mentioned.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Can I real quick just say
Please do.
I was looking at Loki on the elevator. They have little symbols that are like kind of like what do you call them? hourglasses, and I was like,
Uh-huh.
or is it an hourglass or is it a bow tie? Because bow ties are cool.
They are
Bow
cool.
ties are cool.
I went through a phase.
Maddie D, I don't think Maddie D's around tonight, but Maddie D had commented in the Grawlix podcast Facebook group, facebook.com/group/Grawlix podcast. You should go there and chat us up. And I didn't get a chance to reply back, but he pointed out further comparisons between Loki and Doctor Who is Richard E. Grant was in Doctor Who, but not only was he in Doctor Who, didn't he play the Doctor in that children in need special?
Yep, like comedy special. It was like during the wilderness era where there really wasn't Doctor Who, but they were like, we're gonna make our own Doctor Who.
Mm-hmm. So he was not canon, but for a time was almost considered canon, and I think he actually got offered or was contemplated for the role during the revival.
Wow.
But
it would have been good.
Yeah, old Loki is a doctor of sorts anyway. So, yeah, they're the same.
The same thing.
Well, they both travel in time, eh?
How about what? Hey, Paul. Paul, are you still there? If so, did you watch Fear Street Part 1? I know Paul was excited about that. Melanie and I watched Fear Street Part 1, 1994 on Netflix, which is the first of a trilogy of films. It's kind of interesting. I kind of like this idea of like producing a series of films, and then they're just going to release like one a week or one every 2 weeks till they're out. So it's like, it's just a TV show of films.
Yeah.
But based on the R.L. Paul says it was awesome. Okay, based on the R.L. Stein series, I don't know how closely. I've never read a single R.L. Stein anything.
Which is insane to me because there were so many R.L. Stein books.
Right, and I think I was pretty much the right age. I just never, I don't know. And I liked, they looked cheesy to me because I liked horror, but it looked like cheesy horror. Which, listen, I'm older now. I appreciate some cheesy horror for sure.
It was like Scholastic Book Fair horror.
Right.
Yeah, I was like, there's no way that's good. That's not proper horror. I want to watch The Exorcist.
Yeah.
But Melanie and I watched it. It was okay. I'm curious about parts 2 and 3. It's not great. It's a little sloppy. I give it 3 stars. I liked it. It felt sloppy with its exposition. It was very much just like anytime anything needed to be explained, it was like, hey, here's a character that kind of knows something. Also the music.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, it's 1994. How do you know it's 1994? We're going to play all the big hits of 1994 on the radio or just whatever.
Did they play I'm Just a Girl?
No. No.
Well, at least they got that right.
Whoever picked the soundtrack had good taste. Like, they were definitely listening to what I was listening to. But it's like, at that time. But it's overdone. I don't like when a period piece is just like, let's just constantly play like 10-second clips of different songs from the era because it's like, this is a period piece, and people who were alive then will be like, wow, that song. Oh, that song.
Yeah.
Also, like, don't use Closer by Nine Inch Nails.
Yeah.
Unless you're going to really use it good. Don't just throw it on the radio.
Right.
I agree.
And they literally, the worst moment was, and this is, if you want to do that once or twice or whatever in a period piece, do it. That's fine. It's a good way to establish, like, the time period. It's kind of like, here's the 1994 mood. 9 Inch Nails, I guess. Or White Zombie. But don't, like, just slam track after track in there for no reason. There's a part where, like, Cypress Hill comes on to transition into kids getting on the bus. It plays for... Yeah, it plays for maybe 10 seconds max, and then one of the characters puts on headphones, and it goes straight into Radiohead, and I'm like, you got to stop it. You have to stop.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing?
It's 90ception.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not good.
They also made a big point of on the internet, AOL, like
Right.
which is I thought was okay, but
How
Yeah,
fast
but-
is your modem?
That bugged me a little bit because they used it as a lazy exposition device. How does this kid have this information? The internet, of course, but it's 1994. Yeah, but AOL and Messenger, what would they call it? AIM or whatever.
Oh, my
like,
goodness. AIM, yeah.
at
AOL
least,
Instant Messenger.
they showed him chatting, and it was and I remember 94. I know the internet was a thing, but that's
It's a magical time. It was
That's
magic.
way before it seemed that common. So it stuck out to me a little bit.
Oh.
But people were, a magical time. Yeah, like the kid, it's doth lady blah blah blah. Like they're talking in they're role playing on there where they're just talking in old English type speak, and it's like, what are you doing? I guess that's kind of accurate. I remember people doing that, but stop it.
yeah.
But they used it as exposition. I was like, come on, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Now you
The
can go
90s
to the
were
library.
a little over the top.
Yeah. Well, now it's the 90s. You can go to the library and do the creepy library scene that horror movies love to do.
Mm-hmm.
But whatever.
I don't think anybody was depressed enough though for the 90s.
Well,
Right.
They kept saying
Right.
the one chick everything was doom and
Mm-hmm.
S-bomb.
All of my
Yeah.
poetry from the 90s had something to do with insanity. Sanity was the big thing,
You're right. You're right.
Yeah, I wrote poetry in the 90s. Everyone did.
I did, yep. It was all so angsty. Man,
Oh,
it was
yeah.
great.
Okay, so Paul says they tried to do what Stranger Things did, but with the 90s references, and the target audience isn't as nostalgic for the 90s as the 80s. I think it's
We're
coming.
getting there.
Yeah, I think it's coming. It's been coming.
They're
for a
just
while.
trying to be ahead of the trend, and it's not quite there yet, but it is, but it isn't.
And people
No.
accuse Stranger Things of going overboard, over the top with the nostalgia. But it'd be like if Stranger Things tried to, if they were playing here's some 80s song that everyone remembers for 6 seconds, and then somebody's gonna put on headphones, and it's gonna be another 80s song somebody remembers,
Yeah.
and then they're gonna get out, and there's gonna be another 80s song that somebody remembers, constantly through the whole thing.
It's not as subtle as Stranger Things was.
Right.
Stranger Things
Right.
felt like it was just in that era.
And that's
This
I don't
feels
know.
like Captain Marvel, the way that they're
Yeah.
handling it.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, I crashed into a blockbuster.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, it starts in a mall, but Stranger Things, it never bothered me because it felt more loving. the nostalgia, I don't know a good way to put it, but
It
Well,
felt-
the uncanny valley wasn't there, and I'm using it kind of incorrectly, but it didn't feel anachronistic.
yeah.
Mhm.
It felt like you were actually in the 80s, and that takes a certain attention to detail
Yeah.
to pull off. And this, if you do it wrong, it feels campy.
Mm-hmm.
They just tried too hard. I didn't hate the 90s setting. I think it's fine.
Mhm.
To me, the 90s just doesn't look different enough, so it's just it's fine. Okay, they're in flannel, cool.
Right.
Whatever. But
Paul nailed it in the chat there. You either have Stranger Things or you have Wonder Woman 1984.
yeah.
And they're
Yeah, that's a
very
good
different.
point. That
Mhm.
yeah.
You know what they need to do? They need to wait and watch for when people start wearing low rise, loose, big baggy jeans. That's when it's going to be the 90s again, or time for the 90s again, because we're not there yet right now.
Well, even bell bottoms came back in the 90s for just a second.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. I wore them.
Yeah, the 60s into the 70s, because that was the 30 years before the 90s, and that's how it works.
Right,
That's how
that's
these things work.
That's what we were nostalgic for back then. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Because I wonder what younger people who were born in the late 90s and beyond, I wonder how they because they like synthwave and stuff, and how do they view it? And I guess it's the same way we viewed the 50s, 60s, 70s nostalgia things that were around when we were kids.
We were discovering it like it was brand new.
Yeah.
And like, hey, do you guys know about this cool thing? And they're all like,
yeah.
But we were like, this is cool. This is the only thing about your life that was cool.
Right. Yeah.
You take it for granted, and we think it's magic.
So complaints aside, I enjoyed it. It's rated R. It's got some pretty good gore, and
yeah, and they
a lot of unnecessary f-bombs, but like it's following a bunch of kids, so I was like, yeah, that seems appropriate. And because it's based on an R.L. Stein thing, and I know the Fear Street, I guess, and I only know this because I read up about it while we were watching the movie, or after, or whatever. Maybe while, I don't know, maybe I wasn't that into it, but that was more directed at like a teen audience versus Goosebumps, which were younger kids.
Right.
That said, I'm still a little surprised they went rated R. There's at least one super memorable kill in it towards the end that was not expected.
No,
pretty brutal.
Yeah, and honestly, the main character seems kind of a little like selfish and cold-hearted, to tell you the truth. I was really surprised by that whole turn of events, but if you watch it, you'll know exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah, the characters are interesting. They're kind of, some of the side characters are a little one note, but there's some decent character complexity. Kind of. And yeah, the main character is definitely kind of selfish, and also like, so there's like this lesbian couple thing going on, and maybe I don't know, but I've seen people make this criticism already, so I kind of had the same thought, because part of her thing is with her ex-girlfriend. She's like, well, why don't you want to tell anybody about us? It's like, maybe because it's 1994 and you're a gay couple. Like, what are you talking about? How do you not understand her hesitation? So
the AIDS thing was huge in the 90s too, right? Like,
right. So yeah, the main character seems unreasonable, but that doesn't seem like bad writing. It just kind of seems like character flaw. Like, yeah,
or maybe a character flaw, or maybe they just don't know. Maybe they live somewhere strange where, one of our favorite things to call each other wasn't a homophobic slur.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
No. Yep. Hey, we're all real good about it now, but I tell you what, in the 90s,
right,
we didn't think anything about it.
Oh my God. I actually did a TikTok on this earlier today, because it was like, what's a movie that is garbage, but you love it anyways? And so I popped in John Leguizamo's The Pest. Which is it's a bad movie, but it has aged even less well than Bill and Ted.
Interesting. Yeah, the 90s. The 80s, it's almost a given. If you throw in most 80s comedies, you're like, well, there's going to be some homophobic slurs because it's the 80s. But the 90s weren't any better about it.
No. Yeah.
In fact, the 90s might be more awkward because people were kind of like embracing it, but also the weird slurs and stuff were still there. And there was I can't remember what. The not gays, is that what Red Letter Media calls it, where there was the joke, and that didn't start in the 90s, but the joke of like, no, we're not gay, which might tie into the Bill and Ted thing a little bit, where it's like, what, huh, no, and that becomes the joke of like, people think they're gay,
right?
Yeah,
which is, I can understand why it's kind of an offensive joke at this point, or well, it was then too, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Well, and like The Pest, just that opening monologue, or I guess it'd be a monologue, not really. As opposed to a cold open, it's one of those few movies that jumps right into a musical number. And the musical number is John Leguizamo playing every possible campy character he can, just so that you get a little piece of the fact that he's going to slip in and out of different identities throughout this thing. And so he makes reference to midgets. He makes reference to a slur for people of diminished mental capacity. He affects an Asian stereotype. He affects like he has like like a towel turban on his head at one point. It's like,
Oh, yeah.
holy cow, this ages so poorly.
Mm-hmm.
This was never a good movie, but this is like potentially the most offensive thing possible now.
You heard it
Mhm.
here, Twitter. Cancel him.
Oh,
Cancel
no.
John Leguizamo.
Oh my
See,
god,
that's the
he's
thing
such a better actor now, though. Like he's a good actor. I mean,
Oh yeah, I have way more respect for him than I did in the '90s
Right.
because of
Mhm.
movies like The Pest. I was like, this is god awful,
Right.
and not because of any offensive stuff, just because it was terrible.
right.
Mhm.
I mean, it was Luigi before that, so I mean,
Yeah.
what are you gonna do?
He's good. Luigi Mario, yeah, he's good.
Mhm.
Yeah, Luigi Mario, you know,
That
of the
reminds me,
Mario family.
that
Mario,
reminds me.
Mario.
I want to do a special episode or something on this. I have not watched it yet. I downloaded.
I haven't either. But I do
You
want to
know
see
where
it.
I'm going with
Yeah.
this? The
Yes.
Super Mario Brothers. I can't, what's the name of it? But basically, the Snyder cut of the Super Mario Brothers. It's not
Right.
Snyder. It's the the original directors, is because it was two directors.
Mhm.
Vision. They cut together, and it's you could tell it's rough because they're like, well, the best version is the VHS rip, the non widescreen VHS rip, because it closest matches the found footage that they cut into it. So when it goes to like found footage, you can tell because like the little time stamp thing comes up, and like it's
wow,
obviously like
yeah.
work print,
Mhm.
and yeah, but I haven't watched it, and it's like 20, 30 minutes. A substantial amount of material was added to it
Mhm.
to give it to restore the original vision.
Hmm.
And it's definitely not an official like
Oh,
studio release thing.
if we get a backstory for Dennis Hopper, I'm in.
I'm so curious as to what it is. I'd forgotten I'd even downloaded it, but it's on archive.org. That's the only place I think you can find it because it's not like officially released.
Mhm.
Right.
So maybe we'll have to do a special or something on it sometime because I just remembered that. Okay, real quick. Also, Melanie and I watched Bo Burnham Inside.
Oh my! Here we go, man. We should have led with that.
Okay, interesting.
Loki, nothing. We should have done the Bo Burnham. Burnham.
Burnham.
Mhm.
That's super interesting. Okay, well, because now my initial assumption about this thing was that like, oh, it's like a comedy special. We don't really talk about that. But then I'd heard a little bit about it. And then I watched a YouTube video talking about it, and I was like, oh, that looks actually super interesting.
Yeah.
It's totally a movie. Like, I mean, it's a musical, perhaps. But
Okay, so
it's
have you
much
guys experienced him before this?
Go ahead.
No. Well, I knew as soon as I saw him, I'm like, I know this guy from somewhere, and I'm like, I've seen him in a romantic comedy, but it was not a romantic comedy. It was I figured it out like toward the end of the thing. The only thing I've seen him in was in A Promising Young Woman as the like love interest. So his part was kind of rom-com of that movie, but that is not that kind of movie. And
Yeah, that's one of his, and that's
He-
one of his
he
few
was-
like proper film roles too.
yeah, he wasn't funny really. He was kind of a d-bag. So that was my opinion of him. And then yeah, he said he told me he was a comedian, and I'm like, I've never seen him do comedy, and he doesn't seem particularly funny to me from the little bit I do know of him. But I don't
I was not sold on him before this. Like,
Mhm.
someone had recommended his specials to me before on Netflix. So, like several years back, I was like, okay, let's watch this Bo Burnham special or whatever that's on Netflix. And I watched it. I was like, I didn't even get through it. I think I watched like 20 minutes of it, and I was like, I'm done. This is
Mhm.
not for me.
Mhm.
Yeah, I had not seen like I had never tried to watch a full thing. Somebody younger than me, Jasper or another guy we worked with, Jasper or Blake, had showed me like songs of his on YouTube, like clips of his
Right.
special stuff.
Which is how he
So-
broke out.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'd seen like so never a full special, but I'd seen like clips, songs he'd done and songs he'd done on stage and stuff like that. And so I was like, okay, he's fine, but like, yeah, I never really thought to check out one of his full specials. He never grabbed me that much.
Right.
But what I had seen of this intrigued me quite a bit.
Right.
So you sound like yeah. So what, Jesse? You've seen this, I'm guessing.
I have seen this. Also, like before this, he went on like a 5 to 7 year hiatus or something. Like he had like legit panic attacks and quit comedy entirely. And then like he went and got some therapy and some help and whatnot and was feeling better. And then we had a pandemic. He was like, maybe I'll get back into the business. Oh, wait, there's a reason not to. And we shouldn't even interact with other human beings.
So there's definitely much more music to this. It's pretty much all music. There's little bits of not music, but it's way more music. It's more music than a musical.
Yeah.
And given that it's a solid like hour and a half feature length thing, it's a lot. It's a lot of music. But so there's a lot more of that than I had expected. And I know for Melanie, I think that was not a positive.
For me.
Right.
Yeah.
But in general, I liked it a lot, actually. I thought it was super cool and super impressive if he actually, he shot it himself. I feel like there's definitely a lot of reality to it, but it's also interesting thinking like there's clearly a lot of intent. There's a lot of staging to it. There's a lot of like it's a proper film. Like the fact that like just the setting, how it gets more and more cluttered as the movie goes, and by the end, like the cameras back off as far away as it can be in this little room, and there's just like light stands and stuff in front of him and stuff.
He even starts tripping over it. Like you don't see any of that at the beginning. Man, the evolution of it is just. It's just interesting. It's just
It is interesting, but my big gripe with it is I wouldn't consider it really a comedy special. It's more like an art piece.
Yeah.
So So it's saying to somebody, hey, you should watch this guy's comedy special, I think is misleading, and you shouldn't do it.
Well, and I think it's kind of sold that way because that's a little bit the format, but that's also like what he's known for. But yeah, based on that, I wouldn't have ever watched it.
He pulls the Band-Aid off of that in the very first song,
But, well, yeah, and I guess I had, like I said, I'd watched a YouTube video about it, so I had a better understanding of what it was. Because afterwards, you're like, that's not really even a comedy. It's an art piece. And I was like, well, that's but that's what I was kind of hoping for. It was more. It was a little bit more art piece than I was even expecting. And so I was good with it. Plus I also, man, comedians, I like me a depressed comedian. I enjoy even because really there's not a lot of like, there's some okay stuff. Some of the like obvious the obvious going for laugh stuff was okay. Like the white woman Instagram, I enjoyed quite a bit. It's like
it was funny, but like actually
it's
that's
like
one of
the
one of the low points of the special for me because it's so standard.
Yeah,
but it's the dark stuff.
Sacco
was amazing.
God, I was like, wow, I love puppets and I'm feeling weird right now.
Yeah, that kind of stuff, or even just the weird like interlude where it just cuts and he's like. He'll do like a little kind of like YouTube-y almost skits where he's like, well, thanks for watching, blah, blah, blah. And, there's going to be lots more. And he's just super chipper holding a knife.
Yeah.
And just smiling. And I was like, that's kind of
oh
great.
My God. And then the Twitch thing, I love, or the reaction video. The reaction video is great. The Twitch thing. Oh like my God.
Meta, meta on top of meta reaction thing.
I like, good. And I like the internet song. That one was fun.
That's the best.
But I like the depressing whatever stuff also more.
Making up age 30. And the whole time I'm like, oh my God. Like it made me question my own Arrested Development because I was like, man, these are things I didn't even feel until I was like closer to 40, And like he's experiencing them at 30, probably because of the pandemic, but
Were you gonna say more, Melanie?
No, I was just meant in general. The songs kind of made it less. Yeah, like you said earlier, I didn't really care for it as much, maybe as I could tell Randy does, and it seems like Jesse does too. I liked it, but it wasn't that great to me, and I think it was just because there was too much songs, and a lot of them were boring and dumb to me.
I also found one thing there is definitely like an arc. Like even if he plays it up a bit towards the end, I feel like a lot of that is definitely coming from a real space, because if you think about a lot of the like skits where like the skits and the songs where he obviously put he put time into every bit, but the white woman's Instagram and he liked to dance around as a sexy lady way a lot, but the sexting and stuff, maybe that might have been a little later in the thing, but a lot of the ones where you could tell it's like just a skit come before he says he's been in there for 6 months. And then if you think of this, everything in the movie that happens after between 6 months and a year, there's not that many skits, and there's a lot more of the like just him looking miserable. And so I was like, yeah, I think it wore on him real hard, because at first, yeah, all the skits and put all this effort into it, then the later parts just like him looking scruffy.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know. It's pretty interesting.
The lighting work was amazing. He did really good with that.
Right.
But he was naked a little too much, I thought, personally, for me.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
there's some creepy sexualness in it that's like, oh, dude, go on. But whatever. It's the human experience. I maybe this is a little high, and I would, if I had to rewatch it again, I'd maybe come down, but I gave it 5 stars.
Wow, 5 stars.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess, what would I give it? I don't know. Maybe 4.5 or 5.
Maybe 4.5 might be more fair. I don't know. Maybe it's more interesting on a rewatch. I don't know. And yeah, there were some of the songs I was not super keen on, but
see, actually, the songs were kind of a detriment to me, because I've experienced so many of the songs. Like, it got to the point where I was like, fine, I'm just going to watch this thing so that I understand what everybody's talking about. But on TikTok, the songs are everywhere. So I've experienced the songs like multiple times before I've even seen them with context. And they're so much better with context, but the punch is gone because you've already heard the song 15 different times with 15 different people playing it a different way.
Okay, Paul says I got super quiet, so I'm gonna jiggle all my knobs. I think I might have. I don't want to have to buy a new interface, but I might have to buy a new audio interface. I don't know.
Yeah.
Let me know if that's better, Paul. Yeah, we can move on from that. But yeah, no, that was interesting. That was not a thing I expected us to really spend a lot of time on, because it's kind of outside of the normal stuff we talk about. But
it's so pop culture right now that it's good that we did.
Right. Okay, Paul says better. Thanks, Paul.
Good.
Well, I know we spent way. You know what? I'm not gonna. Maybe I won't have a lot to say about Loki. Jesse, have you consumed anything you want to talk about before we get to Loki?
The only thing, I think I mentioned this last time, I've been watching a little bit more of that This Is Pop
okay, right.
documentary series. So I watched a couple more episodes. Basically, we only watched one more. Episode 1 was about Boys to Men, basically. The second one was about there was the T-Pain auto-tune episode. I think we talked about those 2 last week. The episodes that we watched this week were about Sweden and Sweden's connection to pop, which is crazy. Like, there's a ton of Swedish influence on pop. Like the Backstreet Boys Backstreet Boys debut. That's what happened.
Oh, okay.
There.
I see what happened.
Their album was basically they went to Sweden, and like there's all the Swedish influence I didn't know anything about. Same thing with Britney Spears. Same thing. Went to the same like production company in Sweden. It's like basically
Oh.
recording in a closet or like a B&B, but like all of these hit makers exist in Sweden. It's crazy.
Interesting.
So there was that episode, and then there was a country episode where country crossing over into pop, and so they had to go into the Old Town Road, Shania Twain, all these different like crossover country pop things.
Mm-hmm.
It was fascinating,
Yeah.
So I'm continuing to enjoy that.
Cool. And was that was that on Hulu? What was that on?
Netflix. That's a Netflix.
Oh, it's on Netflix. Okay.
Yep. Oh yeah. Paul in the chat is pointing out how like the Swedish influences to like pare things down so it meets the music. So they'll like truncate the lyrics to a bizarre fashion. So like "Hit Me Baby One More Time." If you listen to those lyrics on their own, you like don't even consider how bizarre and like almost violent that is. But the original intent was like, "Hit me up on the phone, like call me." So it's almost like "Call Me Maybe" is the intent of the song, but we get "Hit Me Baby One More Time."
Yeah.
Interesting. You know, somebody like a Swede was like, "What about this?" And they're like,
Let's trim that down
like,
so it meets the music.
That sounds
it's
like
all about the music.
It's like Google Translate, and you're like, what that translated to sounds a little bit like domestic violence. So like, no, just do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it becomes a Billboard top hit, like number one on the charts.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Okay. Oh, I might have to check that out.
And then they were like, I want it that way. And how bizarre and stupid that song is if you just look at the lyrics on its own.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you want what? You want what? What way?
Yeah.
What does this mean? This doesn't mean anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a fascinating episode. And they go into Ace of Base and all these other like actually Swedish acts. So
Did they see the sign?
that was fascinating how they like built that slowly, incrementally over time, where they like put it out to like Euro dance clubs without any lyrics, and they just built the music, and then they came back and they added the lyrics in.
So that's almost
like, wow.
That's kind of fascinating because that's almost like market. What do they call it? Market testing. What do they call it? Test screening? Test our audiences and stuff like that with movies where they're like, okay, we're going to show this in a couple theaters to some test audiences, get their input, and then make changes to improve if need be. Yeah, that's kind of what that seems like. Like, well, how does the dance? How do the clubs, like people in the clubs, like?
And it was like, if this part doesn't hit, it's gone. Redo it.
Yeah, Omaha's a test market for food because we're all fat.
Yeah,
it is. Did anybody else get the KFC Double Down? Did that ever actually go out to anywhere?
I don't think so. Not really.
That's what it was called, wasn't it?
Yeah, the Double Down. Yeah,
we were the test market, man. I know some people that love that. They were like, "Look, it's 2 chickens.
It's a sandwich, only there's no bread. It's chicken.
Yeah,
that's such a stupid idea. Wasn't bad, but chicken is good, so whatever.
Right."
Who come up with that?
I don't
know. That should have went nationwide.
I'm surprised. it didn't
double down. Somebody needed double.
It would have been huge in the South, I mean, like
would have been.
I don't know.
Throw a waffle in between, and you got chicken and waffle breakfast.
Oh yeah.
Wait, is chicken and waffle even a breakfast thing, or I'm just thinking that it is because it's a waffle? Got waffles in there.
I don't know. I've never actually had chicken and waffles.
Sounds good to me.
It tastes pretty good.
Strange. I'd never even heard of it. So, speaking of things I'd never heard of, what about the alligator Lokis? Is that a good segue?
Oh, okay, so here's a weird tie-in to the Double Down or whatever it's called. We had a friend that called it the bunless snack monster. And that feels like a good nickname for Loki crocodile or Loki gator.
Yeah.
The bunless snack monster.
He was a
okay,
legit snack.
So last week, we were on the fence. We were on the ropes. We were on the fence about what episode 4 was setting up. So now that we've gotten episode 5, guys, guy and girl, woman, sorry. Some people get upset about that. It's like, sorry. How do you guys feel about it?
Garbage. It was garbage.
Really?
The area was garbage. It was the end of time. It was where all the garbage went. And it was garbage. It was garbage.
Really? I liked it.
It was dumb. It was fun, but it was dumb.
The idea behind it, the whole like this is, the end of the time place where you go and then there's something that eats it or something. So then where does it go? It's that whole thing is crap. It's not a good story. It doesn't make sense. But I'm not going to pass judgment on that part of it yet until we see what happens in the next episode, because they lead into each other somehow. So it could just be like, a mirage type thing. There's lots of magic and weird stuff in this. So I'm willing to forgive that because, it was a fun episode. It was super fun.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised by your take on it, Jesse.
No, I'm also just throwing some shock value in here.
You can hate it if you want. It's fine.
I don't hate it. Okay, we'll get there. I'll give you a full actual reasoning for my review. I'm just throwing Paul off his game in the chat there. Because he's gonna be like, it doesn't need a plot. It does need a plot.
So, they went straight up comic book, a little silly, but man, it was a super fun episode, and I couldn't help but smile through most of it. It was very entertaining, and even though I still am not fond of the turn from the like pruning not actually meaning death, at least right away thing.
Right.
I'm kind of okay with the explanation. It's fine. The fact that it wasn't... The things that make that okay for me is that it's not just Loki Island, right? It's not just Lokis happen to go to this Loki spot, because Morbius also shows up. And it's like, well... Mobius, not Jared Leto.
Right.
There's also some semen.
There are some
That was great.
Some sailor men's.
Like everything about this is Easter eggs. Even that was a great Easter egg.
So I'm okay with it. I'm glad that maybe it's a little cheesy that like he happened to show up, Mobius, but he's fine. He's gonna go back and burn down the TVA. He says, "It sounds like you got a one-man war going on." He's gonna have a hard time.
Good luck with that.
But also, like, why would anybody trust the one lady that leads? I can't remember her name that leads it, because
see, that's
she just seems so untrustworthy.
Ravana. She's the love interest of Kang in the comics.
Oh, is she?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that makes a lot.
So
more
that's
sense.
either a huge red herring, which will be infuriating later, or obvious nod.
So, but yeah, I'm kind of okay with the twists where they went with it. I didn't like the twists in the first place, but where they went with it so far is fine. They weren't all Lokis fighting in there, but there were a lot of Lokis. I love the fight scene where it's just like
a bar brawl of Lokis.
We see President Loki. It's not our Loki. That's fine.
That part was a little disappointing to me. Like, I felt like the trailers really built him up, and then he was nothing. It was just like a moment.
It is a tease. It's a tease and kind of cheap marketing, because you're assuming, well, that's our Loki. How does he become like president or whatever that is? It's not our Loki. It's the one other Loki that looks exactly like our Loki.
Right.
But then he gets his hand bitten off by a Loki gator, and a whole like a barroom brawl ensues, and that was amazing.
That was great. This episode felt like a dopamine drip.
Right.
Like we got an IV of dopamine, and it was just like, oh, drip, drip,
Mhm.
drip. That's
Yeah.
great, and that's great, and this is amazing. That's a thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Look at all these things that I like.
I
Mhm.
enjoyed that. Classic Loki was actually way cooler than I was worried.
He was awesome.
He was
Mhm.
so
awesome.
good. The costume is so cheesy, but like, you know what? That when you make the character that good, though, it kind of
Yeah.
works. Kid Loki, the little bit we seen him, I didn't like him. I didn't like his face.
I didn't like him, and he overacted, but at the same time, I was okay with it because it was like he would even like do this whole like hands on hips thing, and it was like,
Mhm.
oh man, if it wasn't for the fact that you did that, I would hate this. But it was like, oh, it's kind of the way that kids actually do overact, you know? They're like,
Mhm.
I did love that. Well, for one, that the group, they're like not just, random Lokis. They're like the reject Lokis.
Yeah.
Off in their own little spot. Yeah, that get rated later. But I love that. I love when they're sitting there like drinking wine. Kid Loki's got a high C juice box. That
Mhm.
cracked me up. Quite
well,
a
there's the
bit.
ecto cooler too. So it was like, oh, that was a Nexus event. We're not supposed to have that. So there it is in the garbage heap.
Mhm.
I love that the ecto cooler is a Nexus event. Needs to be pruned.
Okay, so speaking of like Easter eggs, then I'm assuming one of the big major ones that everybody's like, is the Thanos copter.
See, I didn't see the Thanos copter.
You didn't see the Thanos
I didn't
copter?
see it.
That
I'm
was
sure
the
it
one
was
that
right there.
really
but
jumped out
Yeah.
to me. It's just like a
I love
wreckage
it.
of a
I love
helicopter
that
that
it's
said
there.
Thanos. I'm like, they put the Thanos. So in some version canon of the MCU, the Thanos copter is a thing.
Right.
What's
Well,
with
we
the
have
tiny
classic-
Thor?
Well,
The tiny-
it wasn't just a tiny Thor. The thing is that it wasn't like super focused in. On the bottle, it had T like 365 or something like that.
Mhm.
That was Frog Thor.
Oh, okay.
He was
okay.
in a jar. He was trying to get Mjolnir.
I see
That's
Mjolnir.
when Loki turned him into a frog. There's like two different versions of Thor frog. There's that. There's the one where Thor legitimately is turned into a frog, and then there is a different version where it's a frog that gets like a little teeny piece of Mjolnir, like a little sliver of Mjolnir falls off, and it turns into its own hammer because this frog is worthy and can lift the shard of Mjolnir.
Mhm.
So
Fun.
silly.
So such beefy Easter eggs that they left in this.
Mhm.
Okay, and this is definitely one that was beyond me, that the show kind of made a deal of. Paul says Lil Loki rocking the sword of Surtur.
Right. So that's one of the weapons that that classic Loki would wield, and so he received it from Kid Loki.
Okay.
So the flaming dagger. Yes.
This was also, I feel, the first episode where, outside of the one moment where they almost created a Nexus event because they were making eyes at each other, where Sylvie looked like she actually might have some interest in
Right.
Loki,
Yeah.
Right.
where
Yeah.
she was somewhat human and not just like revenge machine,
Right.
Right.
We got a little bit more vulnerability out of her this episode.
Well,
so
if
she
nothing
felt
else,
more natural.
If nothing else, she felt like she cared about Loki's feelings. Like,
Right.
so remember when this was happening? Like even if she isn't falling for Loki, she's like, I don't want to hurt you.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. As opposed to like, yeah, she has some degree of compassion for him.
Mhm.
Right.
Well, this was like the character development episode or something where they had to point it all out, like Loki being disgusted with all the Lokis trying to backstab each other, and then their little chat and all, and her even caring about somebody other than herself and her revenge, all that stuff.
I love that classic Loki is actually the Loki that got the furthest.
Mhm.
Like he's like, oh, I had such a good illusion that I actually survived Endgame, and
Mhm.
it was basically everybody that I had ever loved was gone, and I started to miss people.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I like that he got the furthest by just going off and being by himself.
Yeah.
Right.
And as soon as he's like, okay, I need to go hang out with some people, then they're like, well, now, which
No,
makes
you
sense.
can't do that.
That makes sense, and actually kind of touches on something we were talking about before, where, like, when we were talking last week or the week before about how she could, like, really, she'd have to jump from
Place to place.
place to place constantly.
Mm-hmm.
And my argument was like, well, not necessarily. If she can go somewhere by herself, she could stay there as long as she wants, so long as she doesn't create anything that interferes with the timeline.
Right.
And classic Loki kind of confirms that. He went off to some planet by himself and was fine until he decided to leave to find the people. And then they knew where he was. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
I also liked his whole thing of, like, his magic. Like, he's like, the swords or the knives hold you back. It inhibits your magical ability. You know, my whatever is so much stronger because I didn't ever wielded a whatever. And then you see at the end, he's got some strong magic.
Right.
And Loki's even like, I think we're more powerful than we realize.
Right. Yeah. Man, he recreates Valhalla, or not Valhalla, but like he creates Asgard.
Yeah.
It
was
cool.
They put some money. I mean, it's all CG, but they put some money in this episode.
Oh yeah.
And
it was a smoke monster, the lost smoke monster they had.
Yeah. And I felt like it was pretty well done.
Yeah.
And exciting.
Yeah. Exciting is especially important because it makes you not pay attention to all the things that should be an issue in art. Like and I'm sure this is probably some kind of a Easter egg too, but the pizza car that he shows up in, that's fun. That's fun, and I'm sure people love it. But how does he know to show up there?
Right.
He wouldn't. That kind of stuff.
Yeah. Or we're getting into it. We're ready to tear flesh now.
Okay. I suppose so. Yeah. So let's hear. What's your beef?
Well, I mean, Melanie, go for it because you're already touching on it.
Well, that was the one of the biggest things. Yeah, everybody knows where to go to meet up with each other, and then get out of there. Like they know they're coming and where they're going to be. It's just it's not realistic at all. But like I said, if it's entertaining enough, you could just ignore it, I guess. But yeah, go ahead, Jesse.
Well, I mean, that's basically it, is that this was the dopamine drip episode where it's like, I expected that it was going to hold some answers, and it was basically another filler episode before the end. And we only get 6 episodes of this. So yes, I enjoyed all the Easter eggs. The Easter eggs were lots of fun.
One more.
Yeah, there's only one left. Right. And so, yeah, Mobius shows up where we need him. Sylvie shows up where we need her. Just like she just figures it out and then, let's do that. Yes, sorry, gametographer, we need to big time spoilers. Thank you for chiming in. I appreciate you watching for sure.
I'll never remember to hit it on time, but I should add a little spoiler graphic. That way, when we hit spoilers, I can turn it on and people can visually see, like, okay, we're talking about spoilers.
Right.
I just assume most people know.
I mean, like Loki Gator was a treasure. He was super funny and fun. But it just was like, we're going to have to wrap it up because next episode's the last one. So we're just going to figure everything out. Well, where is Loki? He's at the end of time, of course. And then how are we going to get where we need to go? Where could the bad guy possibly be? Well, he must be beyond the void. He must be beyond what we know. And what's guarding that but a smoke monster from Lost? And all of that.
There are things, and I can't imagine it would have cost much more to just. I'm sure some of it's on the cutting room floor. there are a lot of parts that feel truncated, over unnecessarily truncated. And it's like, if you're gonna cram it into 6, like, don't Game of Thrones us, man. If you're gonna cram it
Yeah.
into 6 episodes, like, but it's gonna feel rushed, spread it out a little bit.
Right.
Right.
It's okay if you slow the pace down a little bit. It's
Mhm.
fine. But maybe that's it. They just don't want to slow the pace down, or I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, because I have lots of questions that I need answers to. Like, what is up with that clock lady?
Oh yeah,
She-
Miss Minutes. She's
Yeah.
obviously more than she seems.
Yes, yes, indeed. And a liar.
Right.
She is.
Yeah, the Void Ship.
Right.
It is here. I'm looking for it. I'll find it in just
It's
a moment.
it's really deep. It's weird that I haven't found it yet.
Mm. Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's the main thing, is that it seemed very convenient. Everything plot wise was very convenient in this episode,
Mhm.
which, piggybacking on the last episode, was continuing some of that frustration, where it's like everything that we had in the beginning felt very introspective and very like I don't know, the mystery was so deep, and like he literally is dealing with the death of his father, his brother, his mother, and himself in the first episode.
Yeah.
And now we have madcap adventures with all the space Lokis.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, you're right. You're right. It did. Because
Like,
once
wow, we've come a long way since episode 1.
the show, and I still feel like that was the last episode. Once the show took a turn, it's just been cram to get stuff to get to wherever they're going. It's that kid who doesn't, like, waits to the last minute to do the homework, right? Like, just
Right.
but
But also, like, that kid, like, we know that is a good kid, but that kid did wait too long. The kid does need to learn its lesson. And I feel like that's this whole block of Disney Plus entertainment is like, man, you guys have such potential.
Right.
And we love you, and you've built up enough good grace that, of course, I'm going to see it to the end. But this is now the third time where I'm like, man, is this last episode going to be garbage?
I mean, maybe.
I'm a little worried it's going to be from stuff like in this episode. Another thing that I didn't necessarily care for, but they kind of did it a little bit last time too. With like Morbius, they're like, "What are you going to do when you get back there?" "No, I'm going to burn it to the ground." Okay, yeah, but he should be way more upset and
Right.
invested in this than they have him being. He's like, "I'm just here to help you out," No, they took you away from your life and forced you into servitude for all eternity, basically. No, you should be very, very upset. It should be you burn everything to the ground, not just the bureau's offices. I don't know.
He's just that laid back.
Well, I mean, he is Owen Wilson, I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
that's the only reason you buy it, really, is because it's Owen Wilson.
I do. It's still weird to me that, like, they're so, like, friends, but I love his character in this, and I think he's kind of the perfect kind of straight man to put up against Loki, or with Loki, where but he's not like your traditional straight man, as in like a comedic duo straight man, not as in straight man, but because I don't know, he doesn't take the crap, but he also, like, nothing really seems to rub him the wrong way.
Right.
He's super earnest.
He was
but
the perfect casting for that, for sure.
Right.
and I respond to Paul commented,
Oh, yeah, I want to respond to that too, but you go first.
he said, "Is it really that bad, or did WandaVision set the bar much higher than we thought?" I don't think it's bad. I think it's better than WandaVision, in my opinion, as far as enjoyment goes. But yeah, I mean, there's always things we can pick apart, and the more we love it, the more we're going to tear it up. That's my opinion.
Right.
I would agree. Also, the formula is backwards. with WandaVision versus Loki. Like Loki hit us with all of those weird emotional beats of Loki facing down all the serious stuff in the very first episode.
Right.
WandaVision, on the other hand, had us in the 60s and it's fun and nothing's real.
You're right. WandaVision started wacky and then got more emotional. And this is different. You're exactly right. It started out more emotional and then got wacky. And no, I am enjoying this far more. Even with the episodes that I have gripes with than WandaVision. Not that WandaVision was bad, because it wasn't. But like this episode, for example, like it's goofy and wacky and like kind of like still, yeah, I guess like the rushing things, there's plot holes all of a sudden. But man, this is so much more like Thor Ragnarok than anything WandaVision, and I'm on board with that. It's just fun, weird, and kind of crazy. If anything set the bar high, it's the first couple episodes of this series set the bar high. So then, I mean, it wasn't until episode 4 that we had like a single bad thing to say about it.
Oh no, yeah.
Right.
So then, even still, I am all on board for whatever's going to happen next.
Yeah,
like they've built enough goodwill in the first 3 episodes that I'm in.
I agree, and I like that we compared it a little bit to Game of Thrones, because I hated the way that Game of Thrones ended personally, but I still would suggest somebody that hadn't seen it go watch that series, because it's a great series overall. And I'm going to say the same about this, probably, whether it craps its pants or not.
I think the last episode will be fine. I'm not too concerned about it, partially because even though, yes, there were plot holes and like we need to find Sylvia or whatever her name is, and then like she shows up, and then Owen Wilson's there, and then they're like, hey, there's a car. Like, okay, whatever.
Right.
But you know what? That's just cutting the fat. It feels a little cheap and plot holy, but it's just kind of getting to the point, which I guess is our bigger gripe, is that it's a little rushed. But
and they run from a cloud, which is like running from the weather, which is ridiculous.
It's so Fortnite, the episode. Like, I don't know if you guys know Fortnite, but like the concept behind Fortnite is that
the shrinking,
you're dumped into it and it shrinks and shrinks and shrinks until you have to act, kind of thing. And that's this episode, man. It's like, oh, it's just a bunch of stuff, and then we'll slowly just close the iris until you have to do the thing that you got to do.
Normally, running from it's the thing that Day After Tomorrow drove. I hated that movie with a passion, and the thing that was the worst about it was they were running from the cold. It's like The Happening, where they're running from the wind. No, you don't run from the cold. You don't run from the wind. It's weather. Here, though, it actually didn't bug me because, sure, it's a cloud, but it's also a creature. It's a thing that still seems to have to move.
Yeah.
It's not just like, it doesn't seem like it could just envelop all the land like a cloud or fog could.
But of course, she enchanted it by herself on the way in by accident.
Which was interesting, except like, spoilers, at the end, she enchants it, or her and the other Loki enchant it, and then it just like goes away. It's like, but no. If I was going to enchant a cloud monster, that means you then have control of a cloud monster.
Right.
Did it actually go away? I didn't.
Well,
think
like it splits in half, like, and then we see the
that's
yellow
the
brick
idea.
road.
She's
and
just like made it open the path or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was better than the Galactus cloud. It was, Paul. You're right. Because that was the worst way to do Galactus ever, and everyone agrees about it.
I think that last shot, I think I figured out who's behind it all. It's Harry Potter, because it looks like they're going to go to Hogwarts.
I think it's the Wizard of Oz. In his hot air balloon and everything.
Good point.
Well, and then they're really just, I mean, like, they're really throwing the Kang the Conqueror stuff in there. I don't know if we'll even get Kang, you know, but they're really throwing that out there. So I don't know if it's a red herring at this point or not. But Ravana being the love interest of Kang means, I mean, obviously we're going to have Kang eventually. It's confirmed. But that's supposed to happen in the Ant-Man movie. And then we've got like the Stark Tower or Avengers Tower had was like another Easter egg. It was spelled QENG, and that's when Kang bought that tower in one of the comic storylines. So this was ripe with comics Easter eggs. Another fun one was the Living Tribunal, which is essentially the cosmic like judge of all things, basically God for the Marvel universe. There was like the head of a statue of the Living Tribunal just like laying on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's the big head, Melanie, you pointed out.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Okay, we should wrap up the conversation.
Went over an hour, huh?
A little over an hour. This is my fault.
Bo Burnham.
It was Doctor Who. Well, we didn't really talk about Bo Burnham that much. It's Doctor Who.
Right.
Always blame the doctor. So I liked this episode a lot. It was a lot of fun.
It was fun. It was just a tonal shift for me.
It was.
Yeah. That's good, because if it didn't go fun, it would have to go depressing and Loki's dead, or and
yeah, that's true.
We already had to deal with his death once. We don't need to do it again.
Also, Pizza Car, where's his jet ski? Where's Mobius's jet ski?
Right.
You don't. It's what is the gun? I can't remember what that. Where you show the gun in the first act, it's got to be used like in the third act.
Oh,
Right.
what is that called? Oh, is not the Maltese Falcon. That's that's like a MacGuffin.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All the terms. If
Right.
you know what we're talking about, then you know what we're talking about.
Right.
Mhm.
Exactly.
It's Shakalini's gun.
I know what you're talking about, and you're not even close. But I do know what you're talking about. I don't think it starts with the nest, though. I guess just to wrap it up, let's just throw it out there. Do you think there will be a second season? Because there's been a supposed leak, or people speculate that this is not the end of Loki, that this is the first Disney Plus series that might get a second season. Can they wrap it up in one more episode?
Well,
is that even possible?
They can. I was gonna say, kind of like, although I feel like WandaVision's wrap up was not terrible, I feel like regardless how they wrap it up, it's going to be kind of disappointing.
Right.
I would love to see another season of this if it's similar to this.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't want them to then like end up on regular Earth dealing with, bland Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. agents and stuff. Like, I stick with the crazy sci-fi time travel, kind of head trippy stuff, and I would love another season of this.
Yeah.
Go Umbrella, Umbrella Academy. With it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Throw us a curve.
Chekhov's
gun. Yes.
Well, we got Chekhov's jet ski. Where's it at?
Where is it? True.
You know what? Final episode. I think I made a prediction last week. I don't remember what it was, but it had something to do with the Skybeam. So this episode, Mobius jumps in out of nowhere through a time portal on a jet ski and takes out a Skybeam. He knocks over a cloud monster into the Skybeam, saving everyone.
And Hunter B-15 remembers her time as a jet ski. She is the jet ski. She was happy.
It's sci-fi. You can do anything.
She remembers being happy in that life.
Yeah.
Yep.
Are we planning to go longer next week to wrap up Loki?
We just won't talk about anything else.
Yeah, we'll try not to. I won't watch anything else.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to watch more Doctor Who, okay?
Yeah. Just don't talk about it.
Do you know what episode I'm stuck on right now? No, actually, I might have got past it. Let's Kill Hitler. I was enjoying my rewatch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you've always hated that.
And I feel like I'm curious to see where it goes after this, because I feel like that's when the Moff run starts to like just nosedive.
You know, the only thing I hate more than Amy Pond, River Song. Yeah,
She, I've argued this in the past. So just for the people who are new, River Song got better after she's not on the show anymore. Big Finish does everyone better.
It's so funny. Like, that's true of actual doctors even.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Better after they're
6 and 7 are so good in Big Finish. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man. Oh, it's just so bad.
Yeah.
You know what's... Was it Silence in the Library and the Forest of the Dead or whatever it was called? Where the first episodes River Song was introduced in? Those episodes are so good. And that's still RTD era, but Moff wrote them because, you know, River Song's like, you know, his creation.
Sure.
She's tolerable in it. And like the way it's presented, it introduces this idea of basically time travelers' wife or whatever that thing is called.
Right.
Well, but those episodes are so good. And rewatching it this time through, knowing how botched the River Song plot gets and how kind of... I don't really care for her character in the show either. The hello, sweetie. Moff just gets so hung up on catchphrases. Everyone's got to have a catchphrase. And if they're not great to begin with, you just loathe them a couple episodes into it.
Yeah, he doesn't like abandon them either.
It's disappointing to think about it, watching that, and then be like, this is as good as River Song gets, I feel. Anyway.
Well, and like he couldn't even regenerate without taking the bow tie off. Come on, he's not that precious. Even the 5th Doctor got the scarf for an episode.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's far more iconic than the bow tie.
Oh, since we're on it again, one last thing, then we'll wrap, then we'll go. Melanie, you should start thinking about what people might want to be amazed about.
Oh.
I was very fascinated by... I rewatched the last couple episodes of the 9th Doctor. And maybe it's because they're like... Maybe he's just like, no, just get me off of this show. But his regeneration is so quick. I mean, they kind of set it up through... Like, it's kind of obvious it's coming. But when it comes time, his whole big flowery speech is basically like, you were brilliant, and so was I. Blah, 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 regenerate.
Right.
And then Tennant takes like... He fake regenerates like twice, creates a clone of himself.
Oh
well,
my God,
Donna has a part. They create a clone of him. And then he spends like 20 minutes during his regeneration revisiting every companion he's ever met as that Doctor.
Score creep, man. Because then he finally does, right?
Yep.
And then you got 11. He spends 100 years on Trenzalore.
He's an old man. He finally aged. Wait, why did he finally age? Because he spent like 200, 300 years in between episodes at times.
Right.
Weird. But he's an old man, and then he regenerates into a young man so that he can regenerate properly. It's so stretched out. Capaldi is regenerating through like 3 of his last episodes. He keeps holding it back.
Yep.
It's just like, what? I feel like whatever this next season is, it's just going to be Jodie Whittaker's regeneration the whole time. It's going to be Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, the whole season will be her regenerating.
We're just going to get episodes of her going, ah!
I got a little left. I still have to say goodbye to the fam.
The fam. That's another thing.
Right. Let her regenerate.
I will give Moff this. I feel like people don't like Amy, but Amy, Rory, maybe even River Song, despite them actually being a family, I feel like that show established a family in the TARDIS better than the show where the Doctor actually calls them fam.
Yeah.
First off, the characters are a little bit more interesting to me, but also like it's their banter. It's the way they like talk. It's not just them like calling each other fam and that makes them a family. Like they're kind of crappy to each other, all of them sometimes, But
Right.
that's what actual family people do. Like they love each other, and that's when like the nice moments are like, "Aw," and otherwise they're
God,
calling each
Tegan
other
was better. Yeah.
otherwise they're calling each other idiots and telling them to shut up. Like
Mhm.
it's such a like more actual, feels like a family unit
Right.
thing than the
Right.
current TARDIS crew. So I
Yeah.
don't know. Sorry, Melanie, you're right. You're right.
Okay.
We need to wrap it up.
Yep.
I could tell.
Okay. So you want me to do what we should be amazed about then?
I feel like you should explain it.
Oh, okay.
No. Yeah. No,
Well, I went
let's-
with some. Sorry,
I love you.
I love you too. Okay, so I went with something simple that I thought would interest people, and it's just really results of an experiment. For 4 years between 2015 and 2019, 2,500 Icelanders, which is like 1% of their population, took part in an experiment where they reduced their work week to 35 hours. And it was a big success. They didn't have any drops in productivity or provisions of services, while worker well-being improved substantially across a wide range of metrics, including perceived stress and burnout. So everybody loved it, and it worked out well all around. So yeah.
Lazy, and it'll never work here.
No way. No way.
That just won't
Socialism.
work in America. Socialist.
Oh, I
No,
forgot.
that
one of
isn't.
one of the key things too, that they didn't drop their pay though. So, that I'm sure helps. If they were making a lot less, that would add to their stress, not, reduce it. So, but yeah.
Then why would they even think of doing it? No, yeah, that is super interesting.
A
Mhm.
living wage?
Right.
What?
Hmm. Yeah. A company being concerned about their people's health? What?
No, I like that. I like that story.
Yeah.
Listen up, America. Get your crap together. All right. Well, thank you, Melanie.
You're welcome.
I am amazed.
Hmm.
I am amazed too. I had lost all hope in humanity, but at least Iceland has figured it out.
It's not surprising that they're the happiest country on the planet.
Right.
So you have restored hope in humanity. America,
Oh, yeah, no, we're doomed.
we're doomed. I
Yeah.
feel like 1994 girl.
Mhm.
You're doomed. I'm going to go listen to Radiohead and
we
Cypress Hill.
we know what the problem is, and we're still not going to get the vaccine.
Mhm.
All right. So, sorry for the awkward stepping on the beginning of that segment, Melanie.
No, that's fine. We awkwardly step on things all the time.
Sweet.
Hmm.
Don't be a bug around us. I'm assuming it'd be better to be confidently squished than awkwardly stepped on.
Hmm. I agree.
Like, oh, sorry, but squish. I'm sorry, it's a weird tangent. I just, you know what? We're streaming for 4 hours now.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the butterfly effect right there.
Mm.
All right. First off, thanks you two. Thanks, guys, for hosting
you.
this with me. Oh, as a viewer, the awkward step was funny. We got a giggling Randy. I did giggle a little.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Don't tell your friends.
Or do if that means they'll watch.
In
Yeah.
fact, you should tell your friends. Tell them to go to grawlixpodcast.com. It's GRAWLAX podcast.com. Or, hey, tune in every Tuesday at 8:20.
Tuesday now?
Every
Wait,
Thursday.
Tuesday? Okay.
Every Thursday at 8:20-ish, unless we decide to change days.
Mhm.
It happened.
It's new.
And catch us live. Chat us up.
Mhm.
We'll spoil all the shows for you.
Yes. Especially if you show up right in the middle, man. Sorry.
I should put it. You know what? I should, when we're talking about an ongoing series like this, I'm just not used to talking about it so soon to where spoilers are a thing. Usually it's like
Right.
2 years
Right.
later and everybody knows already.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fair. But it's smart. Like we could put like a banner right in the middle.
I'll put it
here.
in the title. Oh yeah, and I'll put a banner up here, but I could also put it in the title of the posts.
Yeah.
That'd probably be a good idea. So, but thanks for watching, and future listeners, thanks for listening. Take it easy. Have a wonderful weekend. Is Black Widow, is that opening to this weekend? Tonight?
I think so. It's got to be coming soon because I know people that have gotten pre-screeners.
Okay.
So
not that
I'm hearing good things. I'm hearing David Harbour. I mean, he went to Juilliard.
It's Chekhov's David Harbour.
It's Chekhov's David Harbour. They'll use that in the third act.
Yep.
He's great. He needs to be in all the things, man. Go watch Frankenstein. What was it?
Frankenstein's Monster.
Yeah. It might even been more Frankenstein's Monster Frankenstein or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yes.
On Netflix. I'm sure it's still there. It was a made for Netflix thing. It's real short and ridiculous. Go watch it. That's if you're wondering why we kept talking about Chekhov's gun and stuff. But until then, take it easy.
Yep.
Check you later.
Check off you later.
Oh, that's a little dirty sounding.
It's like Chekhov's podcast.
Check off podcast. Yeah.
Third act.
Ooh.
The end times.